May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Today you've heard a murder case that is all about time. And by illustrating 3 separate moments in time, the state has met its burden of proof to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant was not acting in self-defense, but instead acted with malice aforethought. What happened before the murder? What happened at the exact moment of the murder? And what happened after the murder was over? Well, let's start from the beginning. What was the defendant's motive in killing Fit Newton? Well, Raven Feather came to the stand and testified that large insurance policies were taken out by the defendant. Insurance policies that she intended to cash in on. Members of the jury, no matter how much Talbot Barry was allowed to weave his way around the evidence, it speaks for itself. He wrote a letter on April 22nd that said what was going to happen the next day. He knew the fate of that painting before it was even recovered. Members of the jury, Fit Newton didn't steal the Cherokee Rose. He was asleep when it was stolen. Moreover, he's the one who recovered it. So on April 1st, when Fit Newton went to the defendant's office on her request, he wasn't going to get any kind of revenge. All he wanted to get was the truth. Fit Newton had no reason to be the aggressor on April 1st. The defendant, on the other hand, had 1,000,000 reasons to commit this crime. Which brings us to the moment of the murder. The defendant claims she was thrown around the room, but the fact is, the evidence shows that she has nothing to show for that except a cut on her hand. At least, nothing that anyone but her best friend saw. She was calm, cool, and collected within 10 minutes of when she claimed she was driven to kill in alleged self-defense. But what do we know from the defendant's own testimony about that moment? We know she had already broken free from the clutch, if there even was one, of Fit Newton. We know that at that time she was across a large table from him when she claimed she was prompted to reach for her gun. We know she had to take the time and take it out of the drawer. We know it was somehow loaded with modern, deadly ammunition designed to kill. Members of the jury, based on the physical evidence, we know that that first bullet was a graze wound that would have immobilized Fit Newton. We also know that that first bullet was shot at Fit Newton's back. Does that sound like self-defense to anyone? Which brings us to what the defendant did after that. The evidence shows that one bullet wasn't enough for the defendant because she didn't fire once or even twice in the same spot. She fired twice in very different directions with very different angles and at very different times. Members of the jury, that second bullet, even if fired quickly somehow, we know it struck a much more fatal bullseye. That it was a distinct, second, distinguishable, and even more deadly act. Members of the jury, it's the time in between those two bullets that proves malice murder under Georgia law and disproves any claim of reasonable self-defense. But the truth is, members of the jury, I don't have to tell you the defendant wasn't acting in self-defense. She already has. The defendant told you she wasn't acting in self-defense when she waited 24 minutes to call the police. The defendant told you she wasn't acting in self-defense when she had no explanation for the disappearance of a second bullet or any casing in that entire room. The defendant told you she wasn't acting in self-defense when she refused to call the police but agreed to call her friend. The defendant told you she wasn't acting in self-defense when at 8:40 she shattered that antique clock. The defendant told you she wasn't acting in self-defense when she called a cleaning crew to get rid of every single piece of evidence she hadn't already dealt with the same night she murdered Fit Newton. Members of the jury, what does she have to show for this confrontation? Nothing but a single cut on her hand that stands in this courtroom today, a mockery of the law of self-defense. Because the truth is, the defendant had all the time in the world, with the body, with the crime scene, with Barry. Members of the jury, today the defendant's time is up. We are confident you will convict